Welcome to a Wolfshangs Entertainment video. This is Hellcat speaking. Today I'm going to talk to you about the build that I posted up on Diablo Fans called the Cleanup Crew Fire Style. This build essentially focuses around, of course, fire and the required legendary Renho Flare. This makes your Plague of Toads seek out enemies, and it can explode twice. The can supposedly means that there's a chance, even though the chance seems about 100%. The seeks out enemies part makes your 3 toads that you shoot out home in on the enemies. Why I use fire is that the explosive toads is the highest damage ruin of the explosive Plague of Toads family. So as you can see, there's 130%, 182, 190, 190. Rain of Toads does not work with the Renho Flare. That leaves really the Addling Toads and Toad Affinity, possibly piercing toads, but technically the Renho Flare makes everything piercing anyways. So what you really want to do with this build then is try to make your Plague of Toads have max amount of damage. So by going to the explosive toads, your toads will be doing the highest amount of damage possible compared to the other ruins such as like poison. What this also does is that Plague of Toads costs no mana. You can cast this all day. So what this does is we have a large amount of excessive mana. What we can then do is spam Zombie Charger, Explosive Beasts. You can use other pieces, but the Explosive Beast is a fire ruin, and it has very high single target amount of damage. It is a tie or torpedo that explodes up in a 9-yard radius, which is very good. What this does also is that if you were in a poison build, for example, and you were using Acid Cloud, you don't have a legendary called the Cinder Coat. The Cinder Coat reduces the resource cost of fire skills by 29%, and it also has elemental damage increase. The Cinder Coat makes it so that you can spam Zombie Charger consistently. So, for example, since we're trying to maximize the amount of Plague of Toads damage, this jumps us right into the passives, and we use Pierce of Veil. All of your damage is increased by 20%, but your mana costs are increased by 30%. You're maximizing the amount of Plague of Toads damage, and then by wearing the Cinder Coat, you're canceling out the mana costs are increased by 30%, which is phenomenally cool. So you know why we use Pierce of Veil. Fetish Psychophans, I will skip for the moment, and we'll go to Gruesome Feast. Gruesome Feast allows you to stack more intelligence as you pick up health globes. 10% additional intelligence for 15 seconds per health globe. This is also multiplicative. So if you started out with close to 10,000 intelligence, you would jump up to 11,000 intelligence for the first 10% health globe. Then the next one after that would be like 1100, or no, not 11, like 12,000 something. Basically, it adds up faster and faster to the point that you can reach easily 15 to 16,000 intelligence depending on what your active skills are. What we do with Graves and Justice is you have the offensive and defensive part. If you're using Gruesome Feast, you're most likely going to have the Thing of the Deep, which increases golden health pickup by 20 yards. This synergizes with the Graves and Justice. As you can see at the very bottom, the range is extended by items that increase your gold pickup radius. So by having the Thing of the Deep, you increase Graves and Justice to a 40-yard radius. So you gain 1% of your maximum life and mana, reduce the cooldown of all your skills by 1 second when an enemy dies within 40 yards if you have the Thing of the Deep. This is phenomenally amazing. This centrally focuses more cooldown refreshes along with high movement speed and defense in this build. So you can have Spirit Walk, Mass Confusion, and larger cooldown damage bursts. The last passive is the Pivot Point. That's why I wanted to skip it. Technically I should put that at the end, but that's just how I have it. Fetish Sycophants you can use with Creeping Death if you wanted to use dots in this build, or Midnight Feast if you want to maximize the amount of your Wrathful Protector. So because Wrathful Protector now has a huge burst damage, it actually works fairly well. But Fetish Sycophants has been buffed also. And since Plague of Toads and Zombie Charger procs these Fiendish Sycophants, I keep it as just an additional little constant damage in the background. Fiendishes also tank mobs for you, so you might still hit 70 millions with Wrathful Protector if you have the Mask of Jerem right now, or when you jump up with the Midnight Feast, he will be hitting 130 mils to 140 depending on what you have. So really, it's not much of a difference if you can tank mobs defensively or if you want a little bit more burst damage. Basically, it comes down if you're doing solo, Fiendish Sycophants are going to be phenomenally amazing. If you're in a party, Midnight Feast is going to be better. You can also swap this out for Jungle Fortitude if you're in Torment 4 or Torment 3 if you don't have enough toughness, and so on and so forth. So let's jump down to the active skills. So you know why we have a Plague of Toads and Zombie Charger. As you can see by having Graves Injustice on your bar, you could know why Spirit Walk is on the bar and Mass Confusion. Spirit Walk you use for large movement speed increases so that you can constantly move around as fast as possible. I accidentally actually did that, so just ignore it for now. With Mass Confusion, you have 2 refreshes more per minute than Big Bad Voodoo. You can do the small calculation, and on top of it you get a 12-second crowd control. This is phenomenally amazing, especially in party groups when you're constantly mowing down mobs as fast as possible, because you're going to run into this champion packs, most likely 1 to 2 per minute. This makes it so that Mass Confusion is going to be constantly up for that next champion pack or rare pack, boss, so on and so forth. Then this leaves 2 sort of pivot points that you can choose to do whatever you want. If you're making this build turn into a dot build for extra AoE damage because you don't have as good single target, you can put on Locust Swarm and Haunt and so on and so forth. However, in a good party situations, I always have Burst, because now with the new pet builds with the Mask of Jerem, we have some of the most burst damage in the game, and by having that on your bar, you're helping out the group phenomenally. So you can switch out for Wrathful Protector if the Mask of Jerem, Big Bad Voodoo if you want another burst. You can switch out to quite a few different things. This is all in Diablo fans posts that I posted up. You can see what I posted, and I'm trying to keep it constantly up to date. I haven't put in the Wrathful Protector yet, just because I've been testing it out for the past couple days, but it seems like it's definitely going to be a big choice to have if you have the Mask of Jerem, because really early on, if you don't have the Mask of Jerem, this is a 77%, I think it's 75 to 100% damage increase. So without having that, the Gargantuan's not really going to hit very hard. Otherwise, then it's not point, or there's no point of having it. So then I would have something like Vengeful Spirit, Ruin of Soul Harvest. And why I would have this is that every time you hit an enemy within 16 yards, you gain 2% intelligence. This stacks up to 5 times. This also gives you amount of burst, so when you're running through movement and casting Plague of Toads, you can pop Vengeful Spirit, Ruin of Soul Harvest. But what this does is also gains an extra 10% for Gruesome Feast. So once you're capped out, what this does is that if you are sitting around the same intelligence I'm sitting at around 15,500 intelligence with just Gruesome Feast. What Soul Harvest does is it puts me around 16,700 to 17,000 intelligence, which is crazy that just one little skill easily can produce another 1,500 intelligence almost. So it's definitely something to think about if you don't have the Mask of Jerem, because the Mask of Jerem now is going to be one of the most overpowered helms. This also leads into itemization. This is the last part of the guide. I'm actually doing a very good time. So with shoulders, you want intelligence, vitality, life percentage, and chance on area damage. Chance on area damage scales extremely crazy with this freaking Plague of Toads build, because each one of these little guys blow up in a small 5-yard radius. On top of it, area damage procs with all 3 of those toads. They also do double damage. You're literally just coming out to the point that you're going to get 1, 2, maybe even 3 procs per second or per cast of Plague of Toads. So if you have a 68% area damage, this does 10 yards of 68% of the damage of that area of toad. And if that area of damage does a sufficient amount of damage, it can start shredding down mobs even faster along with the AoE. And you can see how it's just another multiplicative effect, and you will see this in the gameplay videos. Percent life I choose because all resist is completely useless in this build, because intelligence gives 10% all resist. So as you can see, I don't have any physical resistance and arcane and holy resistance on my build. You can tell because 10% of 9,453 intelligence is 945 physical resistance and arcane and holy resistance. What this also does is it makes Gruesome Feast and Soul Harvest highly defensive. So right now I'm sitting at 5.8 million toughness. Once I kill one mob pack, pop up at that 5 health globes, I'm sitting at that 15,000 mark of intelligence. I'm sitting up at 1,500 all resist, which increases my toughness by about another 2 million. But what this does is that per point of armor will equal to a large amount of your all resist. Where we have so much intelligence, we have to find the equilibrium of all resist and armor. So percent life or armor is the best choice for this build. That also leads to the helm. The helm, you can go with the Andariel's Visage, the Quetzalcoatl, Mask of Jerem, so on and so forth. Andariel's Visage gives you that fire skills increase, so you can have more elemental damage increase. But since our Witch Doctors now scale phenomenally with our pet builds, Mask of Jerem is probably the most damage increasing helm for this build. So as you can see, you really want intelligence, vitality, crit chance, and a socket. The socket will be used in Torment 3 and above. You can technically use it in Torment 1 and Torment 2 for increased bonus experience. Basically, you want to have a good balance between crit across all your pieces of gear. You can see that my amulet doesn't have crit, but it does have good crit hit damage, intelligence, and fire skills damage. That's really what you want to see, but I would rather see life per hit off that amulet and crit chance on there. And then we move to the Mage Fist. The Mage Fists are required technically for this build, along, like, for example, the Cinder Coat, because you really want that extra fire skills deal equal more damage. Then you preferably want a Trifactor, because the attack speed will increase the amounts of casts of Plague of Toads per second. The more Plague of Toads per second that you dish out, the more AoE damage that you deal. You can also go with the Intelligence and Vitality for extra toughness, so that works also. Just try to make sure that you have crit hit damage on there, crit chance, fire skills deal 20% more damage, and intelligence. Possibly Vite or attack speed, depending on what you want. The Cinder Coat, you really want intelligence, vitality, preferably 2 to 3 sockets. It's sometimes hard to get 3 sockets because they just don't drop very well like that. And either way, per socket, you get 280 intelligence in game with Flawless Royal Topazes. And with Gruesome Feast, that will scale very well. So you can see that each socket will additionally add more damage later on. Your bracers, you really want something exactly like this. This is a lower in legendary, but it's better than my almost flawless rare bracers. What you want is fire, elemental damage, intelligence, vitality, and crit chance. You can switch the vitality out for like armor, but you definitely want to keep a large amounts of vitality so that you can have a larger health pool, so that you can take large amounts of damage when you get into those later torments. Then for your rings, you want Trifactors for the attack speed, but you can go something like this has more vitality, so you have more toughness, so you can do Torment 4. I'm actually capable of doing Torment 4 just fine. In the belt, you want a Hellcat Waistguard or Fleeting Strap. You can make the Fleeting Strap in the blacksmith. It has attack speed on it. That's why you really want this belt. You want intelligence, vitality, preferably on there, and then take the life percentage or armor off for Plague of Toads damage, because the belt, pants, and offhand can have Plague of Toads damage. This leads us to the pants. Pants, you want maximum amount of sockets, which is 2. Then you want intelligence, vitality. I accidentally happened to have armor on this, but it rolled sort of a crappy set piece anyways. But either way, it's still better than a normal rare. As you can see, the weapon that we can't switch out, the boots are some like the final pivot point. You can do sort of whatever you want with this. You can have toughness on here, but you can also roll zombie charger damage. And I rolled zombie charger damage instead of all resist or armor and so on and so forth. You want intelligence and vitality, and preferably movement speed. Movement speed in this game you can equal out in your Paragon. As you can see, there's 11% on here. You can do subtraction. 25% movement speed is the cap for movement speed. So 25 minus 11 is 14. I put 14% movement speed in my Paragon points, so I'm maxed out on movement speed so that I can continuously keep on going and going and going, because this build is for clearing Torment 1 as fast as possible and higher torments, because the larger amount of damage you get, Torment 2 becomes literally a cakewalk, and Torment 3, Torment 4, and so on and so forth. The offhand is another pivot point at this build. You can go with the Thing of Deep because it scales extremely well with Gruesome Feast, but you can also go with other offhands. I have quite a few of them already because I've been rolling my blood shards as offhands. So there's the Monodrama's Gory Fetch, but it does not have a special ability. There's the Homunculus that now has zombie dogs on it, which is a decent type. There's the Shikandri's Triumph, which is highly good for movement speed because it makes your Spirit Walk last forever until you attack or you come within an enemy in 30 yards. The last one that I've found is the Coppian Serpent, which makes it so that 29% of your damage you take is redirected to your zombie dogs. This makes it so that you can easily do Torment 4 without taking a tremendous amount of damage. So that's something that you can swap out once you get into the later difficulties, and you'll be wanting to try to find an offhand such as this. So that's basically the itemization, active skills, passive skills. The links will be in the description below in the Diablo fans post that of this build. It's in the essay format or a wall of text so that you can easily see a little bit more description. Thank you for watching. I hope you try out this build when you get the Run Hell Flare. It's very powerful, as you will see in my gameplay videos. And have a good day.